Join us in learning about the stories and the people who inspire us. This is the Mission 43 podcast. I'm Dan Nelson.
And I'm Brian Madden. Idaho is our home. The military is what we did.
Welcome back, B-Mad. Been a while, man.
It's good to be here.
Hey, we're talking about Smoke and Fire today, a 400-ish mile race. Some say closer to 430, up in the mountains of Idaho. No roads, nothing.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome. So I think about 423 miles, kind of a underground style race, no entry fee. Anyone can do it. And we're going to be sitting with Anthony Skeesick, who's a Air Force officer, and Willie Stewart, who is part of the Challenge Athletes Foundation.
Yeah, so this team, when it's the first time adaptive athletes of any kind have actually attempted the Smoke and Fire 400, and we're going to talk to them about actually how that went and what happened to the team as a whole.
Yeah, so pretty cool setup where we got Mission 43 athletes joining up with the Challenge Athletes Foundation. They are working together to try to get through this race and get to the finish line. So it's going to be cool to hear their stories. We sit down with Anthony and Willie.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's bring them in.
All right, let's do it.
Hey, welcome, Willie Stewart. Welcome, Anthony Skeesick. Congratulations on the trials of the Smoke and Fire 400. So first of all, why? Why the Smoke and Fire? Not details about the race, but why did you guys do this? You're part of CAF. You're part of Mission 43. Why?
You want me to go, Anthony?
I'll start it off, and
Go ahead, brother.
and then you bring it on. So last year when these guys were rolling through at the finish line, I think I said this before, I saw all these guys on bikes loaded down, heavy. They were dirty, nasty looking. And I went up to one of them and said, hey, what'd you guys just get done doing? And they said the Smoke and Fire 400. And I'm like, what is this? He was like, well, check it out online and take a look. And I went to the site almost immediately, and I see this race, and it's like 400 miles, 40-some-odd thousand feet of elevation gain. And then the pictures, you look at the gallery of the pictures, and you're like, holy crap, man. Like, you're talking some awesome parts of Idaho that's all done on, like, service roads, right? People don't get to see that kind of shit normally on a day-to-day basis. And I'm like, I want to give this thing a go. Growing up, I was a team sport kind of guy, never did anything endurance at all. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna give it a go and see what happens.
Yeah, so you're drinking beer like in the North End, and
That's
you
right.
see some dirty guys roll up, and that motivates you at 40, 41 years old. You have kids, you have a full-time career, you have a boss-ass wife who is running her own career.
Who's freaking awesome, by the way.
Yep. So you just decide that that's something you're going to do, and you're going to spend 4 to 8 hours on a bike during the day to train up for this?
That's right.
And where did the idea of connecting you, military member, Mission 43 member, with Challenge Athletes Foundation Idaho?
Yeah, so that's where Willie comes into play. And I remember sitting around the table talking with Willie. It was actually at his house. Willie and Jen and we're sitting there BSing about this. And I'm like, yo, Willie, what do you think about doing this race? Because, like, he's got all the experience in the world. I know I'm new to this whole thing, and I could really use his experience and, like, part of his, how he trains to work through this. And, like, we got to talking about it, and then that's where this grandiose plan of bringing CAF athletes in started. And I'm going to let Willie take it over because he was really the driving force behind that whole piece.
Yeah, I really like doing things that expose you to your frailties, your weaknesses. I like things that take you in the gutter. And I actually think the gutter's funny now, but I think it's good to be down in the dumps. And I think it's even better when you can do it alongside someone who's your teammate. And this is an individual sport. It's an individual race. But there's something about, like, when we made a commitment to each other to say, hey, let's just stay close together. Those commitments are hard to keep over, 1 or 2 days. Everyone can do a lot of stuff, 24, 48 hours. Boy, in that day 3, it starts getting ugly. And in day 4, you start questioning everything. And most of the questions come from, it's real inside, deep down doubt about who we are. And are we tough enough and strong enough? Am I weak? And it's like you're naked in the woods, standing there. And you're embarrassed and humiliated and defeated. And Anthony and I talked about this a lot. You feel like you're a burden to your brother, And anyone who feels like a burden to their brother wants to stop that suffering. And, so you don't want to bring someone down. You want to build someone up. And so the psychological onion peel that went on out there, that's the crap it's about. That's the reason I do it. And, it takes days to get there. It takes days to discover that your inner self, you're just as rotten as everyone else, and you're just as good as everyone else. You're just as dirty, just as clean. I mean, the flagpole's greasy for all of us. And Smoke and Fire brings that out, which is the best of us. I mean, and ultimately when you get done, especially with a guy with no legs and he's crawling up the hill using my arm, my prosthetic arm as a crutch. That's badass stuff, man.
Yeah. So it wasn't just you two. Who else was on the team with you
That's
guys?
right. There you go.
Yeah,
it wasn't
more
just
to the
us.
story. Yeah.
There's a big army behind us. There's a big force behind us. And Anthony knows your children are behind you. My children behind me. My wife's behind me. All these people have to get on board with you. But then to make it even a little more difficult, let's take a guy named Andre that got run over by a train, and still alive. So it tells you he's kind of a deal. He's kind of like, I don't know, when people get hit by trains and live, they're badasses. Let's take Lucas, a kid who was born with an arm different. Some people will say deformed, but different than anyone else's arm. So it doesn't look right to us, Then there's me, a one-armed dude.
And how did you lose your arm?
I lost my arm on the Watergate building in Washington, D.C. in 1980. I was an undefeated state champion wrestler. I was a pretty damn good athlete, football player, rugby player my whole life. And the thing about me is when I lost my arm, I got off the deck on a 15-story building, I jump off the side of a building into a crane pan. I go down into the street. I'm running up New Hampshire Avenue, holding my bicep up the hole where my arm used to be with a white bone sticking out. And I make it into the hospital within a mile or so from where I was. And I ran down the middle of New Hampshire Avenue with a white bone sticking out, bouncing off rush hour traffic back and forth like a pinball. And in my mind, I thought I was a badass for doing that. In everyone else's mind, it's like, oh, what happened to you? Like, what happened to me is I got the F up and ran to the hospital. And that's what I look at Andre. He got the F up and got in, and now he's out there racing up. What's the name of that place we were at, Anthony? That was just brutally hard. Titus
Lake.
Titus Lake.
Yep.
And the dude's going up Titus Lake. And so all this stuff is these are badass people. And you know what? And Lucas, those guys, Lucas is a kid that probably said, you suck your whole life. Because you know who said that to pick kids? Me. I'm the guy that said you suck. Because I had 2 hands and 2 legs and thought I was a badass. But the real badass is the dude with no legs. That's the baddest ass of us all. And yeah, I love it. It's hard to explain all of it in a short period of time, but boy, I sure as hell was proud of the team I had with me and the emotions I felt watching Anthony and Mark, one of our other teammates that we forgot about, push Andre, carry Andre, shove Andre, drag Andre up to the Titus Lake.
So tell us more about Titus Lake. Like, what was this?
Yeah, so that was by far an emotional event for all of us in a big way. And you went through the range of emotions. Like, we had got out the first day, 154 miles. Our team was feeling really good about where we were standing. We were like, man, we're going to get this thing done in 4 days. We're rocking it, right? And then we have the bike issues in the morning, and we get out the door at like 11 o'clock. Well, I don't know. Both Willie and I were kind of pissed off because the other team, Lucas, Muhammad, and Andre, were still sitting around eating breakfast, right? And we're like, why aren't they on the road yet in front of us? Because we knew what we were going to experience the second day was going to be hard.
Yeah.
And we knew that we were going to have to help out. And that's just, dude, that was why we were there. And so when we got on the road, they weren't in front of us. They were behind us.
We thought they were in front of us.
We thought, right?
By 2.5, 3 hours in front of us.
Yeah.
Shocker.
Yep. So we get out of Ketchum, and your first single trek you get into is Adams Gulch, and it's a bruiser, right? And you get going, and our team was out in front, and I remember stopping and saying, dude, if they're behind us, we have got to stop. We have got to stop, because the whole purpose of us as Mission 43 folks being there was to get the CAF athletes across the line, or at least get them into a position where they could cross the line.
Okay.
And by the way, you were pretty damn nervous. I remember at the dinner before you guys started, the 2 Mission 43 able-bodied athletes
We're going to be tortured.
they look like, you guys look like shook, and then you got like the Andre and Lucas and everything that were like, and Willie, they were like, yeah, this is gonna suck.
Yeah,
We know.
and
this.
then you remember Muhammad's in there, but
Oh,
just
yeah.
before Anthony makes this call, which was Anthony's call, I'm like, if those two, because now at this point Muhammad's done. He's gone. His knee was hurt. His leg was hurt.
He
was
only has
struggling.
one.
Yeah, and he was
leg.
walking on he walks on a prosthetic,
Mm-hmm.
above the knee prosthetic, which makes it even tougher.
Does he
So
ride
what
with a
type of bike-
prosthetic?
What type of bike was he on?
He was on a gravel bike, but he had the
Upright.
wrong gear
So
ratio.
upright bike,
Normal
with
upright
a
bike.
prosthetic leg.
Yeah, and he's a tough mug. I mean, and remember, he's a Paralympic bronze medalist in triathlon.
Right.
So he's an endurance machine. And I mean, the guy can actually dust me on a bike ride. You would think I got 2 legs, I should be able to work him. It's not to the hills that I can work him, but out in the open, he's wicked fast. But
So
Muhammad,
these are world-class athletes. These are not just...
these guys, none of these guys are chumps by any means. But we put them in a situation where they could actually become chumps, well, all of us. And just so you know that Anthony's going up the trail, and we think that Lucas and Andre now are 2 hours ahead of us.
So you're hauling.
Yeah, so we're hauling up the trail, and then we get good 3 miles into the trail, and we go, if they're ahead of us, they're badasses. And then Anthony goes, man, I'm feeling uncomfortable about this. And we try to track them and find out where they are. And I go, they got to be up the road. Well, they were still like, they had crimpets and coffee for breakfast, and they were basically, putting on some makeup. And
Did they know what was coming, though? Had they seen this section before?
Nobody had. Like, nobody had
we
seen this
thought we were
section.
headed right to the Harriman Trail,
Yeah.
which is relatively
flat, easy going.
Well, it's still a 4% grade, 5% grade
Yeah.
at times, but the Harriman Trail's doable. This one was
is
not.
This just happened like a week ago, by the way. So less than a week ago, we're talking about from
1 week from
Yeah,
in the
you're right
morning,
now.
right now.
From right now.
And so my anger level a
if
week
people
ago.
if people are wondering why the emotions may seem raw, like
Yeah.
they're still there.
Yeah, and I
Oh,
wanted
yeah.
to, jump across right then. I was talking about popping blisters. I wanted to pop Anthony's head like a blister because, like, hold on, man, those 3 mugs better be up the road, and they were not.
Dude,
And you-
speaking of blisters, it's kind of distracting.
Yeah.
Your
look at
freaking blister right now.
I mean, what
that
is
is a
from?
gnarly blood blister.
Dude, we want to watch this one pop from
No,
the space
please.
shuttle. From the space shuttle. Hey,
So that comes day 4, and day 4 is going to be a story
Okay.
for later, for sure.
All right,
because
back
that-
to you being pissed off.
Yeah, back to him being pissed off.
well, so
I think that's day
Anthony
4. That's the whole
makes
race,
the
right?
decision because we try to make all decisions like we all buy into what he's saying. He goes, I feel uncomfortable if they're behind us, leaving them because that's what Mission 43 is here for. And technically, service, sacrifice is what I want the most out of the Mission 43 guys. Service, sacrifice, mission. End of it. Cut and dry. Not goal line. Getting one person with a disability to that effing goal line is all I gave a crap about because I didn't want to hear someone saying, "Oh, disabled people can't do it."
It's
Well,
never
no
been done
one- no
before.
one has.
Yeah, but you got to go do it.
Yeah.
and then you can do it.
No
and
one's
I
even
knew, Andre probably take 10 days, and I knew Muhammad probably take 5 days. I know Lucas probably take 4 or 3 days. I know me 4 or 3 days. But as a team crossing the line with other people with disabilities and all supporting one another, that's really difficult crap to do. And that's what I started with. Man, it's hard to keep a unit together under duress.
Yep.
And I mean, who knows better than that than the Mission 43 guys? Or that you've been under a lot of duress in your life. And most people with disabilities have been under a lot of duress
Yeah.
and a lot of doubt. And a lot of doubt makes tough mugs. I'm going to tell you that when people doubt you.
So did you say anything when those guys caught up to you?
We went back.
We went back. So we dropped
you?
our bikes. We hid them along the trail, and we hiked 1.5 miles backwards on the trail and finally caught up with them as they were getting into the single track at Adams Gulch. And you look down the hill, and Willie, being as fast as he is, got in front of Mark and I, but he's down the hill, and you've got Andre crawling on his hands.
And he's on a hand cycle.
He's on a hand
traditionally,
cycle,
yeah.
but
No legs.
he's out at this point. He's
Because
on
of
his
how
stubs
steep it is?
and his and just the rocks and all that
walking-
madness.
he's walking
on his hands.
He's doing a handstand for 420 miles, for Christ's sakes.
And
That's
you've got
pretty
Lucas
impressive.
Onan,
Yeah.
who also has his own issues, right? Hauling his hand cycle up the hill and then going back and retrieving his own bike to bring it up the hill. And we were like, okay, this
Wait,
is
Lucas with one arm was carrying the hand cycle that was fully loaded? That
That's
thing
right.
is not light.
He
no,
was dragging
you
it.
drag it, grab the front wheel.
It's probably
Yeah.
a 40-pound, 50-pound
and then doubles back and gets his own.
Yep, and gets his bike. And then
How long?
He rides with one arm the whole time.
He
right?
rides with one arm the whole time. Yeah.
What distance? What time frame? How long?
So we were
time-wise?
quick.
Yeah,
Anthony made the call right when we saw on the track where they were. We're like, we were pissed.
Yep.
There was no doubt that we were pissed.
So what was that conversation like when you got to that team?
Well, honestly, like I let Willie handle those conversations with the team because obviously I'm not in that world. I don't know what drives them. I don't know how you approach issues when it comes to like trying to motivate somebody with a disability or, you know what I mean? Like it should be the same, but like there's a connection between Willie and them. Whereas if it was me walking up to him and saying, hey dude, you guys need to be faster. They're gonna be like, yeah, go pound sand.
You
right?
just defined the problem that all of us as able-bodied Mission 43 members have in interacting with CAF athletes.
Right.
I think of good friends like Kevin Holtree, right? And it's like at some point you can be like, hey man, get off your ass and get out here and do it. But he's like, it takes me 40 minutes to get in my truck.
Yeah, and that's the thing, Dan. like
like,
you and I, we don't have that experience, right?
Yeah.
We haven't been through that. We don't know what that feels like. Somebody like Willie has, right? So like I wanted Willie to be the face with that team, and he wound up doing it, and he did it well. Slightly, right? But I will tell you that once we met up with them, the rest of that single track was what, 3 miles before we got back onto the Harriman
Almost
Trail?
5.
Almost 5?
Oh, yeah. The rest after the dirt.
Yeah.
So 5 miles of
5
For
miles.
that
Basically,
section, right? And
Which
we're not
was
even talking Titus Lake.
Easily 6-7 hours.
Yeah,
from
we were
start
there
to 5
6
miles.
hours moving him along.
portaging bikes.
Portaging bikes.
Portaging bikes.
And I couldn't know. And the fact is, don't let anyone mistake this. It would not. Those guys would have not have finished this race at all, or even been close to getting farther down the trail had it not been for the decision that Anthony made to go back. Because let me tell you, the guy who's the GIMP disabled guy in there, I'm going. Those mugs need to pay a price for sitting on their asses having coffee. You know, I'm like, for Christ's sakes, boys. You got other, we're all in this together. And when I see someone having coffee a little too long, I'm pissed. That's not team play. Team play is, suffer, sacrifice. That's part of it, commitment, part of it. And when I don't see that happening, I was angry. But
So
Anthony,
why didn't you say something earlier?
because dude, at that point, what was going on at that point in my mind? They were dust. They were already out of the race. And Anthony said, you know what, as a Mission 43 person and why I signed up for this race, I feel bad about going back. And I go, that's all I need to hear, Anthony. I'm on your team. I need you to make that decision. He made it. I'm on your team. Mark went right along. Didn't take much. It took a little bit.
Yep.
Took one 30-second speech.
Yep.
And 30 seconds later, Mark and I and Anthony are headed down the trail as fast as we can. Go back. And anytime I hear go back, I always think of the firefighters in 9/11 going up.
Yeah.
Going up. Going back. Hard decisions to make. Nowhere near like that guy in 9/11, the firefighters that went up and all gave their lives to save lives. Very small, tiny little dot of that feeling. But I was really proud to go back. And when we went back, I had strength. I got strength from going back. Nonetheless, I was still pissed.
Yeah. And it came out even more later on. Like we finally got on the Harriman Trail. We moved farther. We got to the bottom of Galena, of Galena Summit or the Galena Trail.
Which is Titus Trail.
Which is the Titus Trail.
Okay,
And then,
so
and
that
then
makes
that's
sense.
where I don't want to say things came unglued, but that's where like the biggest inspiration for me happened. And I think for Willie as well, because we got to a spot again where I look back and I'm like, dude, guys, there's no freaking way they're going to get anywhere near close. Because it was that section back at Adams Gulch I thought was hard. Like this section coming up would prove to probably be the hardest part of the entire route. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, yeah. And I think
What did it look like?
You can't walk it.
You can't, yeah.
You need ski poles to walk it. You got to push 3.
So super steep.
Super steep.
rocky.
You've got rocks. You've got, boulders.
single track.
This side, single track. It's switchbacky. And you know the switchbacks. Like anytime you get to a switchback, it's super steep in the switchback and then it kind of levels off just a little bit. But this did not level off. Like this was just a freaking brutal
So a
route.
hand cycle can't even fit on this
No.
section.
No.
Yeah, and you got to get it.
Yeah.
And it's 60, your bike's probably close to 60 pounds. Anthony and Mark's bike were carrying a ton, because this is part of the learning curve.
Yep.
You really can't do it the way we did it. And, just the way we did it was worth an extra 10 hours, a lot of weight. But when you go up those trails and you're carrying 60-pound bikes and pushing someone and going back and getting someone else's 60-pound bike. So you're going up the trail twice.
Yeah.
All of us went up the trail twice. And at this point, Lucas...
And again, they're behind us again.
They're behind us, and they should have been out in front of us. And at this point, I think Lucas was shot on this one particular part. And by the time, what do you think, Anthony? By the time we got to the lake...
Yeah.
I was probably back because I had to go back sometimes a quarter of a mile on that trail, that's incredibly steep to go get a bike and bring it back up. And by the time we got up to the very top where we're past the lake, but we're still not at the top of Galena, they're all sitting up there. And I'm like, this ain't going to fly either. Because I think the tensions are starting to build. And it's almost midnight, 9/11 midnight, which is kind of pretty cool.
Is it? Who's the tension between?
Those guys were starting to falter. I felt during that period because I think Lucas went overboard, pulling and pushing.
He was bonking.
He was done. Anthony
done.
and Mark are up the trail. Lucas could get his bike up the trail, and Lucas was falling asleep, which is fine.
Just droning. That's what we call it, military droning.
Yeah,
you're there, but you're not there.
Yeah, and so they're now Anthony and Mark are back a little bit, and it's just small, tense conversations, but it's like Anthony's point is like those guys got to keep going. We can't keep catching them because my dudes are done. Like, is someone reading people? My guys
Your
are
dudes,
done.
as in
Mark
our
and
team.
Anthony
Our team
are
was
done. And I was pretty darn fired up all the way up to the top of Galena. I got fired up. I got fired up by Andre. I got really fired up by the commitment of Mark and the commitment of Anthony at that moment. It was power time.
But prior to that, again, the decision to go backwards or wait did not sit well with Willie. And
no,
it not at all. Like, it was,
Push the button, Anthony.
He,
push that button. Tell those two mugs to push SOS and meet me on the street.
That was
meet me on the street.
Yeah, he was done, and rightfully so, right? He was pissed that they weren't doing their part in getting out ahead of us.
We were never supposed to catch them.
Yeah, never supposed to. But that decision was probably, again, it led to the most inspiring part of the race, and just the way that it all worked out, because Willie automatically came on board, and that dude was a motivator the entire way up that hill. And he would say things along the way to keep you going, right? Because Mark and I were the ones that were either, no kidding, both hands on the back wheels of Andre's rig, going over boulders.
Two people behind Andre, pushing basically 200 pounds up the hill.
Or if it got too steep, told him to get out, and we hauled it up there. Well,
and this is the middle of the night.
It's 11 o'clock at night,
11,
right?
11,
Not exactly the middle.
Yeah.
So
I think middle of the morning, right? But so this is going on, and Willie is leading the charge with portaging the rest of the bikes up the hill, right? So we have this little leapfrog system going on, and I can remember turning my GoPro on and just shining it up the hill, and it was pitch black, right?
Yeah.
But you could see the lights, and it was so cool to see just lights working their way up the mountain. And you're like, holy man, we're actually going to get this done. Yeah. We're going to get him to the top. It's going to hurt, and it wound up hurting Willie the next day in a big way.
That was sideways.
Yep. It took a while to get him in a right place the next day. But, dude, we got to the top, and it felt good. But at that point, Willie and I had a conversation, and it was, we've done our part. We have gotten them to a position where they can make it across the line in time. And he said, my team's done. They can't continue to go along and keep doing this, or nobody is going to cross the finish line. Nobody. And I think you had that conversation with the team at that point.
Yeah, and so I went up the trail, and Mark and Anthony are beat up. I mean, you've been doing 5,000 squats.
Yeah.
You're not, but that's part of, that's sacrifice. Love it. I love the sacrifice. The sacrifice is where I got my power. I got it from watching those guys. I got stronger as I watched those guys. By the time I got to top of Titus Lake, I was pretty happy. But at this point, Lucas is asleep. He's walking. He's done.
Zombie.
And then I get up there and I go, hey, Andre, Lucas, I got to talk to you guys. You cannot stop. And they go, we're too tired. And I go, got to keep going. You got to get 15 miles in front of us by the morning. 15. I think they made it 7. But they made it off the top of the Galena summit.
Yeah.
On trail. Cross the street,
2-3 o'clock in the morning,
bombing down a psycho trail with Lucas with a sound asleep with one hand on the wheel,
right.
and 2 eyes closed, kind of guy I want behind the wheel.
Yep. Perfect.
And so, and they got down there. Nonetheless, our team's destroyed, and we bivvy right there at the top of Galena Summit, and the temp was decent up there too. And I think we went down probably around 1 o'clock in the morning, 1 a.m., and then we were probably up at 5, rolling up the kits and getting the bikes going. And it was a tough descent in the light. Mm-hmm. So whatever Andre and Lucas did in the night was pretty bad. Because I knew Lucas might have been happy he was asleep. Yeah. And remember, prior to that, Lucas fell off a cliff and hit a log pretty hard. Anthony went off a cliff. I don't know how he ended up being okay on that. I think probably it was the next day that I went off the cliff. But I mean, sooner or later, everybody goes off the cliff. But they made it all the way through, and now they're down out in the gravel. And and Andre is a guy who rode his bike across America with his arms. So Lucas is a guy that's ridden his bike across America.
These are incredible athletes. You're an Ironman.
Yeah.
Like,
I have. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people don't, but I solo kayak the Grand Canyon. I have 4 Ironman World Championships, Xterra World Championships, duathlon World Champion. I'm an ITU World Champion. All these.
But you are 59 years old right now.
I'm a geezer, man.
I mean, now.
And I had hair back then.
A career.
I lost all my power. Didn't go in my arm. It went in my hair. It's like, I'm Samson. Now I don't know what I am. I'm Noodle Man. But whatever it is, I'm still putting along.
That's what's impressive about this race, though. Like, you guys are complete studs, and it is taking you to the brink of quitting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And anger.
For sure. And,
I think
just straight up
anger. How much was it physical, just trying to get through it, and how much was it mental?
Honestly, like, it was long, right? It was long days, 18 hours in the saddle. But one of the things he always said was, like, on a race like this, you're not going fast, right? You want to go as slow as you can.
Yeah.
Keep your heart rate down low. That way you can go for hours.
Gain ground.
Right? And gain ground. So, like, I can honestly say, it was tiring being on a bike that long. And, your knees starts to hurt, your shoulders start to hurt. But, like, as far as, like, physically exhausted, that never hit for me.
Yeah.
Right? It was more so just, like, the grinding.
I think Anthony was rock solid from start to finish. I mean, I was up and down, which that's how I am. But I think though the emotional stuff is because you know how it is when you're tired a long time and marching along. You're not you.
Dan doesn't know about that.
Yeah, exactly. But you're not you.
Everyone has
a
little animal inside them. And that's the cool thing. Like you were talking about at the very beginning, this is what it all boils down to. This experiment, the CAF Mission 43 team and the Smoke and Fire, peels away the onion to reveal everyone's little animal. And honestly, it's hard to find good quality abuse these days.
Yeah.
That's
true.
I'm joking, but like really what you're saying, like these opportunities in our first world country that we live in are hard to come by. It takes a lot to break people down to see what we actually are. Some people like the animal and feel pride in what that little animal inside them is, and other people don't. And it always changes. I think about when you guys are talking about getting your own asses and your bikes and all your equipment up and then having to walk back down, make a conscious decision to go back down and double back. So you're doing it 4 times. And I've been in situations like that before, and I'm not proud of it, but it's true. Some days or some moments I felt really proud in how many times I walked back and up and forth. Other days, other nights, sometimes I started to walk slower in hopes that whoever or whatever was coming up was a little bit closer.
Yeah.
You talk about being part of a team. That's what teamwork is. That's what leadership is. And I'm telling you, no one bats 1,000.
No one does. And that's kind of, it's acceptable.
Yeah.
And I think the Mission 43 component of this, and which is why I was supporting the Mission 43 so much, just the word mission. And I just think the transition of people understanding that we're all changing, we're all walking midlife crisis, I mean, we're all a bunch of studs and we're a bunch of wimps all at the same time.
I prefer walking Viagra pill, but
yeah.
Way.
But I mean,
that's what I see
dude, I look like the Noodle Man. So remember this. Right. So, but yeah. I'm saying that I want people. I want to do this next year. We'll get into this race, but I also want people to understand that it requires service. It requires mission. It requires commitment. It's all the things that we all want to be, but can we?
Oh, yeah. You guys saying you actually trained for this? You put in some time and effort to train for this 430-mile race?
Right, yeah.
Up to a point when I broke 6 ribs.
Yeah, exactly.
So
So
hang
you
on.
did this with broken ribs, too.
Yeah, and then Dan hugged me the other night and broke him again.
For God's sakes.
It was Dan's
I
fault.
have short-term memory issues, man. I didn't remember about the ribs, big baby.
Go ahead.
Well, so for those listening, we want to tell everyone, like, you're going to have a lot of questions. We hope you have a lot of questions for Willie and Anthony and us about this race. But we are going to speed ahead a little bit so we can go back to some of the training stuff. So whatever your questions are, please send them to podcast@mission43.org. And if your question is featured on the next podcast, I'm going to send you some swag. So that out of the way, let's go back. So you got Anthony, you got Mark, you got Willie, Muhammad, Andre, and Lucas. Muhammad dropped out because of knee issues. Andre dropped out because it was the only hand cyclist to ever attempt this, right? And it didn't work out this time.
He ran out of time.
He ran out of time. He wouldn't have finished in the time allotted.
Day 3. End of
Right.
day 3. Yep.
So
Still
now,
about 200 miles.
so
though.
now standing, Anthony, Mark, Lucas, and you.
Willie.
So who actually finishes this race?
Well, I think it's Lucas was our main goal at that point, and Mark and Anthony. So 2 Mission 43s and one of my fellow brother wingers.
Well, what happened in between there?
Let's see where we were. We were on Scott Mountain. I don't know if anyone's familiar with
Yep.
Scott Mountain.
Okay, well, tell us a little bit where it is.
Scott Mountain, what do you think? That's like one of the hardest hill climbs the whole thing. It's probably a 6-mile straight up climb.
9 mile.
9-mile straight up climb. How many percentage grade was
It ranged anywhere between like 6 and 20%.
20% grade? 20% grade.
So
I don't
tough
know.
to even hike up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're riding
And that's
up.
key. Like you're hiking your bike
And
sections of it.
And
yeah,
I think,
miles.
and at this point though, keep in mind, my bike already broke once in Sun Valley. We got it fixed at the shop. That's why we wasted 2 hours.
What broke on it?
Lost my brakes because my brakes are upside down, and we learned, now we know, that those brakes upside down don't work so well when it's freezing cold. And we were hitting teens in parts of the night with a lot of vibration.
And you have a special brake setup because you're on, right?
Yeah.
That's why they're upside down.
So it's upside down because I'm a right-handy and they're left hand's on the right upside down. Where Lucas's brakes, he's got the better setup, and I'm going to copy that. I'm going to copy that. And most of the races I do are 10 to 12 hours, 15 hours, sometimes 24, but they're not on courses like that where you're throwing it over trees and torturing your bike.
Right.
I mean, that was a bike torture session. Also, I always race with aid, you know. I got a crew.
Yeah.
They come in and they do my nails, they wash my face, they wipe I get my ass
Mop your
wiped,
brow.
and then they do a few
Yeah,
other
sir.
things, but you know, sometimes those are quick, sometimes they take a little longer. But so we go to the top, and Anthony's bike's broken too, and he's getting super frustrated. I mean, he's pretty much, I mean, for like, I don't know, maybe 4 to 6, maybe 12, 15 hours, he's crying on my shoulder. Like, I don't know, my bike's broken.
What happened to your bike?
It is broken, though.
It is broken,
And
yeah.
it's dangerous because his axle's where it's broken. And, you know, when your
Rear
axle
axle.
falls off, you get a little upset. You got kids, wife, you know, those things sometimes matter. Sometimes. But anyhow, so Anthony, this is important, though. So Mark's is broken. Anthony's is broken. Mine has been broken. Lucas has not been broken. Muhammad is broken, personally broken. And we go up this 9-mile climb, and Anthony's suffering, I think, from burden, when you feel a burden.
Yeah.
And a burden, you don't want, you know, you rather go run into fire and sacrifice than be a burden to your brothers and sisters,
Yep.
you know, and our family. And basically, we became family out
Yeah.
there. And then, so Anthony goes up, he catches up with Lucas, which is probably good because Lucas has lost gears. You know, he's lost a couple gears. I think he gets him back the next day. They fix that. But so the bikes took a beating more than that. And we took a beating with Andre hauling his butt and me pushing bikes and dropping them all the way up the hill. And if you look at my legs, you'll see why. But so we get up there, and at this point, there's a lot of doubt, a lot of broken bikes. And we're really, you know, 5th day, is that what we're heading into the 5th, into the 4th? Yep. You're getting positive, though, because you can smell the goal line. Anthony gets to the top. He descends kind of quickly because he can't use his bike that well. We change our clothes. Andre comes back. He's out of the race, and he comes up, and he gives Lucas a hand. And he was really inspirational how Andre talked to all of us up there. And I was listening to him, and I was really impressed with Andre's demeanor and encouragement to keep going and stuff. And no one on our team was doubtful. Anthony was doubtful because he felt he might have to hike pretty much the last 20 miles of the race. And that's 20 or 30 is doable. It is doable, but it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And so we go down the descent, and as I'm coming down the descent, I got 2 headlights on. It's dusty. It's fast. It's coming down into whatever town that was we were coming into. Garden Valley. And hitting washboard, the washboard down, really rattling it out. And came across it. I was probably going about 40 miles an hour, and I had no brakes. And I was like, this is not going to be good. And I couldn't see the cliffs around me, but I was aware that if I don't keep it down the middle, no one's going to know I'm gone because we're all spread out at that point. Mark was close by, but not close enough to see what was happening. And finally I hoot and I go, I got no brakes, and coming down Scott Mountain with no brakes.
Dude.
And I was heeling it. I heeled it, and it probably took me good 300 yards to stop the bike.
Jesus.
Yeah, but holding it in the middle, bouncing with the lights and all that. And it rocked me, but I really, when you're vibrating, you can't pump the shocks because your grip.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't pump them up to see if you got anything left. And then by the morning when we woke up, I could push my brakes all the way into the thing. And I don't mind dying. I do mind dying stupid. And I felt like that was a stupid thing. And I didn't want to give the team a chance to I made a quick call. Said, love you guys, ciao. And right there, 80 miles out. And then I think I rode home like 50, down 55, which might have been the most dangerous
So you
part
didn't
of it.
finish the race, but
No.
you also didn't quit because you stayed on the bike and rode back to Boise on
No, and I was pissed.
No brakes. Yeah.
no
so
brakes, on hardball.
I'm pissed. I am pissed. And I, tell you the truth, I really didn't care if a trailer, because how many RVs can flick you off in one day? I'll let you know it's somewhere around 1,000.
Yeah.
But dude, Willie, we're not doing it justice if we don't talk through what you and I talked about the next day, right?
Oh.
Because that's truly the raw emotion behind this race, and what was my biggest lesson learned in this whole thing. And it goes back to being the burden, right? Or perceiving yourself as a burden, because prior to Scott Mountain, we're sitting in Deadwood Reservoir, 10 miles again of more single track. One of the other racers counted them out, 49 down trees. You've got creek crossings where you're going down a steep embankment of rock, and then you're coming up the other side, right?
Yep.
So it was hard on Willie, and that's where his little blister comes into play. Like, he's coming off his bike every single time we're going over a log. He's hiking his bike over top, and then he's getting back on. Sounds easy for us, right? But
No,
for Willie,
not really. No.
getting back on your bike is easy for us, right?
Yeah.
But for Willie and his arm set up, he's got the claw that goes over his arm or that goes over his handlebar. Well, that thing is so hard and it's so rigid that he has to sit there and basically fight the bike to put his arm back on. And he's sitting there wrenching down on his arm. It takes both hands to do it. And he's doing this every single time we get off the bike. So I'm sitting behind Willie, and based on the conversation that you and I had, that's when you started to feel like a burden. Mm-hmm. And maybe there was never once, and I even told him this, never once did I think he was a burden to the team. Never once was I thinking, oh my God, because of Willie, we're not going to make it across the finish line. It was inspirational to watch him because he never complained. He never said, what the is going on? He just did it, and he kept going, and we kept pressing. And I think he felt he was a burden just because I would not get in front of him. I wanted to stay behind him to make sure that he made it through, and if I could help, I would. But I think he had the perception that I felt he was a burden to the team. And whenever we got onto Scott Mountain and I started going ahead, that's when I felt that I was the burden to the team, or going to be the burden to the team. So I'm sitting there running ahead of them on Scott Mountain in my own head saying, what am I going to do to not be a burden to the team? How can I work myself to get ahead of them to where the next day they can catch up? My plan, and I tried to talk to Willie about it and Mark, and obviously we're in night of day four. So like my communication skills probably suck at this point. I'm like, listen, boys, I know we're going to stop at Garden Valley, but I'm going to continue through the night, and I'm going to get as close to Boise as I can on my broke-ass bike. And I want to get to a point to where I'm comfortable that I can hike this bike through the finish line.
Yeah.
I want you guys to press ahead and catch up, and then we can finish together, right? But that communication between the two of us and between the team was not effective by any means. They thought, and Willie thought, that I was just trying to blow them, get away from them because they were a burden, right? So you've got two different people that think they're burdens. They're not talking about it, and they think the other person thinks that they're a burden, and that was never the case, like, ever. But, like, when Willie and I had a fairly emotional talk the day after the race, like, yeah, the brakes were an issue for Willie, but he didn't want to ride with me the last day because he thought I thought he was a burden, right? So, like, communication when shit gets hard is important. And not just communication, but effective communication, right? Because you think you're communicating. You think you're saying, hey, man, this is my game plan. I'm going to be a burden to you guys the next day. I want to get away from you guys as far in front as I can. You guys catch up to me, and we can continue on. That was my plan. He took it as their burdens.
Yeah.
I'm going
to get there to finish.
I want to get there to finish because it's about me, right?
Yeah.
Which was never the case, right? But, like, we didn't communicate that well. It never happened, and it wasn't until the race was done that, like, we hashed that out, and I'm like,
We were wrong.
mother, right? We were wrong about our own situations. We were wrong about the other person's situations, and I think this was the biggest learning point for me, and you can apply it to us as veterans, you can apply it to us as adaptive athletes, that your struggles, your trials, your tribulations, if you're not communicating, people don't know where you are. They can't help you if they don't know that there's a problem or they don't know exactly what the problem is, right? Had we had a sit down talk about where we were as individuals, Willie saying to me, hey, brother, man, I hope you don't think I'm a burden. I would have been like, Willie, you're not a burden, man. Like, I'm in my own head thinking about my own issues and being a burden.
And I wanted to punch him in the face.
He wanted to punch me in the face, right?
So, and, you know, and I look at Mission 43, it's lead, learn, inspire. You know, the learn part was what this whole race was about for us. And Anthony and I and Mark pretty much were all on board with staying together, learning from this one, going to do it again and go for it, you know, which I think we're all going to do again.
Amen.
But with the learn part wasn't happening. But I'll tell you, as men, I mean, women too, but mostly men, sometimes it's hard to admit that, you know, you're emotional, you're weak, you're naked, you're alone, you're scared, and all that
You're
shit
tired.
happened. Tired. Mm-hmm. And then, like, you feel like, as a man, you know, that's kind of lame. But as a man, actually, it's got power to it. And in the morning, I really didn't sleep the night after the event, and I was kind of melancholy. And I was so happy that Anthony had to come over to the house and pick up his shit. And I was like, I'm going to step right in his face and bring it on. And it was a great conversation. I knew that he's a brother that has my back. And I think it was a huge misunderstanding. But I still wasn't, you know, as a human, how I'm geared and wired. And a lot of this probably has to do with disability. But without disability, I'd probably never been out there. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I have some self-preservation, and I think we all do. And I wasn't willing to risk alongside Anthony right there, especially going down. You know, when you have broken ribs and if you crash and you land right, you know, you're dead.
Yeah.
You know, and so I'm like, you know, I got little kids, and I'm a father and a somewhat of a wuss. So I said, that's it. And, you know, I had no brakes, but you never know. You never know until you go out there and hit a tree how bad your brakes are. And so under certain circumstances, and if it was being paid, sure, maybe. But this was a race that we were trying to discover ourselves, what we're made of, who we are, and how to do it. And we learned a fucking hell of a lot.
What's the biggest thing you learned?
I think as a unit, I think we learned we can do anything, you know, as a unit. And we also learned that emotion is, it takes a really strong leadership to cut through emotion sometimes. And we learned trust. I think I have way more trust now with Anthony than I never would have had had we not experienced that.
I think you just nailed it, man, because, like, effective communication, that's what all the leadership training is about, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you effectively communicated like you said the words and described why you were going ahead, and you heard those words, but that lack of trust, and it's not like, hey man, I trust you not to steal my bike when I'm asleep. It's a deeper level of emotional trust, a bond, a brotherhood that says, if you're doing this, there must be a reason why.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to be the person, like you're saying, that says, like, I'm doing this because I'm afraid.
Yeah.
I'm doing this because I'm scared I'm going to let you guys down.
Yeah. And I didn't get it, and Anthony didn't get it. Like, you hear Anthony behind me, and I thought he's harumphing. Remember, dude, I'm chucking this basically 100 pounds over the fence 1,000 times. And I'm like, just go ahead, dude. Just go ahead. And also because it's fun. You know, the descents are fun when you can rip them. And Anthony was riding really well in some of those descents where Lucas and I'm better than Lucas, but not much. And it is like, you know, it's sketchy with all that on that bike. And you're like, where's the hand going? Where's the weight going? It's sketchy. So there's a fear factor, but there's a hell of a lot of fun out there too. I mean, I don't want anyone to realize that it is fun. Nature's fun. Nature is healing. Nature is challenging. Nature always owns us. In the long run, nature laughs her ass off at us, just like all women. They think we're stupid, and
So
they're probably right.
Where's this stack up compared to all the other things you've done, Ironmans?
You know, there's some things though that when you're way out there, those are the ones that are going to get you killed. You know, a lot of the adventure races and stuff. And you know, I remember I never was good at anything. Grand Canyon, that was almost killed me quite a few times. But this one's up there that because I have all those other experiences, it allowed me to enjoy this a little more and to be a little more confident in myself and know that we had, 5 days. Mm-hmm. And the fact is, if we were just our little unit, we would have never been tested, I don't think. Yep. I don't think our unit would have been tested at all because it was hard, no doubt, and required a certain amount of skill, required a little bit of hardship. You know, but we're talking, some people feel this hardship every day. I even go to the quad rugby teams, you know, and I hear when you said about Kevin, it takes Kevin, 40 minutes to get in his car. I'm like, some of those guys, it takes 2 hours to dress. Yep. 2 hours to dress. They're badasses, man. And they do it every day and they get out on the field and play. We did it, this was really hard. But what made this the best was that we actually sacrificed for one another, and I think that was good. And it was unfortunate at the very end for me, but I was still super proud. And Anthony knew and Mark knew, get Lucas to the finish line. Just get Lucas to the finish line, prove a point. And the point was proven.
Have you ever not finished something?
Oh, dude. Yeah. I mean, I stood naked on a tree for 6 hours in Hawaii with my pants around my neck because I couldn't move. And then I finally crawled down to a creek and laid in it for another 8 hours, and then finally crawled the street naked, hitchhiking. Do you know who picks people up naked with shorts around their head? Hitchhiking?
Buffalo Bill.
So anyhow,
What event was this?
That's the Hurt 100 trail run. And remember, only 10 people usually.
Yeah.
It's a 100-mile run through the jungle and stuff, and only 10 people out of 100 finish, and I finished it twice.
Do you think you'd be doing these events if you weren't a part of Challenge Athletes Foundation or had this injury? Like, would this be the lifestyle?
Yeah,
would this be the lifestyle you live?
Yeah, I think if I had 2 arms, I'd still be incarcerated.
Still be?
In jail. Yeah. No, I say it could be. And the thing about CAF was that CAF, I was doing, I was a messenger, a rugby player prior to CAF even existing. I also was a skier. But when CF came around, there was a lot of power in it, a lot of power to get people like Andre, the guy we made CF for. Jim McLaren was a 4 or 5 time Ironman, 10 hours and I think 40 minutes on one leg. He's a badass, big guy, played ball at Yale. CF just gave us a platform and gave us a way to express ourselves and gave the opportunity for other people to join us. And I never ever wanted to be alone in sports. I wanted to be integrated in sports. And basically, CF gave us this in Mission 43. We just happened to be under the same roof, our foundation that helps us out. And none of this would have happened without both of us. I mean, this is not up the alley of the most disabled organizations, but it is up the alley of our 2 organizations. And I hope that we all learn from each other and realize that we're our brothers and sisters in the struggle of life. And in that struggle of life, sometimes when we push that envelope in nature, We learn to understand better. And I would have never understood had I not got the opportunity to do and then to interact after to break down what was going on. And I learned a lot about myself and Anthony. And there's the fact of it all is that, we're all great and we all suck.
Yeah. We're all transitioning. That's the thing that I feel with the veterans organization, Veterans
Bingo.
Initiative, like Mission 43, an adaptive athlete, that whether you're 1 year off an injury or 20 years off an injury, you're still transitioning.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think that Mission 43 and Challenge Athletes Foundation Idaho actually offer the state, even people that aren't veterans or adaptive athletes?
Well, the opportunity to grow and understand who we are and bringing bonds together. We're oddballs. I didn't even know Mark. Didn't even know him, And I hope next year I meet 4 or 5 new people that I don't know. But I hope Mark takes 4 or 5 under his wing and Anthony takes 4 or 5 under his wing. And then we empower other people to stretch themselves beyond their imagination. Yep. And in that growth and in that pain and in that struggle is healing. Yep. And healing is, what I said at the top on 9/11 was, this is what a bunch of dumbass Americans need, is to bring it together and understand we're all in this together. And we are powerful together. And we're, you know how it is. What was our weakness, Anthony? Our weakness is when we stop believing in one another and believing in our mission. Yeah. And our mission never was challenged. I don't think our mission ever got challenged. But we challenged ourselves unnecessarily. We put, what do they call it in the cog? We basically threw sand in the cog and said, hey, let's go ourselves over, rather than, hey, let's address this and get some stuff done and find the common ground. And the common ground was we were the exact same. We were 2 guys feeling burdened, 2 wimpy men out in the wilderness feeling burdened, unable to look at our weakness and realize that was our strength. And my strength, I'll tell you, my strength came for the day my arm got chopped off. Made me pissed, made me angry, but made me want to do more, made me believe in myself better than I ever thought I was. And I got comfortable with one arm falling on my face and getting up. And, when Brian asked me, have you ever quit a race before? There's all kinds of reasons you quit races. But I'll tell you what, will I keep racing? Certainly. And when you race enough and do as many as I've done, you'll fall out of races. I got pinned in 14 freaking seconds as a wrestler. Did I quit? I got better. 14 seconds on your back with everyone laughing and pointing at you in a sold-out house. And you know how big those gyms are. When you're in D.C., those gyms are monster factory gyms. And everyone laughing at you, I did not quit. Went on and won 70-some matches in a row. But, it wasn't some easy ride. And I didn't expect this to be an easy ride, and it wasn't. And I expect to face a lot more difficult challenges, way more difficult than this, with my children and my wife.
You guys are both fathers.
Right.
Yeah, well, we all are.
Yeah.
We're all sitting here, and sometimes, my little 10-year-old, he took me to the limit. He found out I'm a pretty good wrestler last night. I love it all, but I'll tell you what, being married's hard. Being a dad, a good dad, is hard.
Well, that communication piece ties right in.
Absolutely.
Right into.
Yeah. And that's that whole thing. Like, to your question, like, what does Mission 43 and CAF provide the state, right? Like, it's that community of like-minded people. It's a community of people that have very similar struggles, and you should feel comfortable with these 2 organizations saying, I'm having an issue, and being confident that somebody within this organization is going to come around you. Like, that's the biggest thing for me, is that, dude, through our struggles that we had, like, somebody should be able to step in and either listen, and once they're done listening, point you in the right direction to get you some help. Like, that's my biggest thing. And it's just the listening piece, right? Like, have that community where you can get together and you can sit there and witness other people's struggles, because you grow from that. You grow from your trials, and you grow from other people's trials.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. And when you're able to get into these 2 organizations and see that, dude, your problems become very small. You know what I mean? And it helps you through your own little issues, being able to see other people struggle through theirs.
And what Anthony's just saying, which is kind of really cool, because we're a small population state.
Yeah.
And Mission 43 is a transition military program with people discovering, like I said, discovering what their new you is. who am I?
Yeah, exactly.
This existential, like, why am I here? And your service, your mission, your sacrifice doesn't disappear. And I believe statewide, if you use our little experiment, Mission 43 and Challenge Athletes Foundation, we're new. You guys are fairly new. We're an experiment, but this experiment can catch fire because you're taking people and exposing them to the worst and best of humanity, and it's in a short period of time. It's an experiment, but boy, if I was a kid in college and I needed to do a doctoral thesis, I got one right here in my pocket. Right here in my pocket. And what does the transitioning veteran feel as opposed to the transitioning disabled person, or someone like Lucas who was born one way and treated one way his whole life and then exalted when he did something that people didn't believe he could do, but he knew all along
Right.
he could do it.
No question.
And people stop questioning because you look different and you can't. It's like, I look different and I can, but I would never know until I try. And Mission 43, I don't know. Mission 43 and CAF, I really do believe we're kind of meant to be. Mm-hmm. It's a great experiment, and it seems like we're all holding the table together, and we still haven't fractured. We sure as hell put it to a limit, but we still haven't fractured. So
Bro,
the test will go on.
I can't tell you how many times, and we were talking about this earlier, like we put on Mission 43, 9/11 Miles of Remembrance Run, or Memorial Day Miles of Remembrance Run, or, whatever physical event, hiking series. And we get people, without a doubt, 100%, they are veterans. They have a piece of paper, a D214, right, that says you served. But they will contact us and say, well, I really wish I could do this, but I can't because, I was in the airborne, did a bunch of jumps, and I'm just, my
5
knees.
jumps.
Yeah. There's a story behind that. But yeah, it's like, I have a bad back. I have bad knees. I have bad ankles.
They go straight to the victim.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say to people like that?
Yeah.
What is the adaptive athlete community? Because let me tell you, first of all, in my opinion, you don't have to say anything.
don't.
Because
I
when
agree.
I am at the biathlon clinic, and that was my first CAF clinic this past January, and I see who's the college gal that's like a month prior.
Oh, boy, Christy.
Yeah. And then 9-year-old kids getting after it without a lick of sympathy for themselves. They don't have to say anything because I'm like, my back hurts.
Yeah.
It's
I
just
agree.
inherently inspiring. It's mutually beneficial.
Dude, I'm a disabled person, and I'll tell you what, you know why I like that clinic? Because those little kids fire me up.
Yeah.
I'm a disabled person. You know why I liked having Andre there? He inspired me.
How much do you invest in the people though who come straight to you acting like victims? How much do you try to
you
giving?
Brian,
How long do you do that for?
Here's how I am. I'm big on onset of disabilities, and this is just me, so this is not CAF or anything. I'm big into investing. Throw the kitchen sink in there and tell them you're a badass and you can be whatever you want. You can be smart and go back to school. You can do a sport if you choose. There's all sports for all abilities. You can go become a painter, an artist, a gifted anything you want to be. But I'll give you everything. But if you go in your basement and you shut those doors and you become what everyone says you are, I give up quick. I'm not quick like to give up because you didn't have. I give. What does it take for you to get out of that hole? I want you to have counseling. I've had counseling. It benefited me immensely. I want you to have socialization. I want you to be able to get in and out of the building, the church you worship in. I want all these things to be available for you. But I'll tell you one thing, sooner or later, the mirror is going to come back and haunt you if you don't get out of that basement.
Yep.
And if you can exercise, and exercise can be just getting out of bed. It's way better than the pill that you might take. And if you can roll an extra 50 feet every day. Easier said than done, but I believe we should invest. And then it comes to the point where if we can move, and I call my disabled population, we're like bubbles. If we can move one bubble off of Social Security insurance back into society, back into marriage, back into education, back into providing and paying taxes, back into the community, we're saving, in one town, we're saving millions of dollars. And if you can move one of our bubbles back into society, we can change the way people think. So if it takes 6 arms, I've been at Walter Reed where some of those guys go, I got 6 arms. And I'm like, I've been hurt for 20 years and I haven't got a arm. You know, I didn't get an arm until 20 years after I was hurt. And it's like, I got 6 arms. And I go, you better use those, you mother.
Yeah.
You know, use those arms, use them, because when you use them, you're a messenger. When you're outside and doing things, people are inspired by you. And when you do that, like Lucas did, people start believing differently about the disabled population. I'll tell you one thing, it's a fight to get people to think differently. And CAF is part of my fight, a very big part of my fight, because they gave me platform and access and opportunity to race at the highest level. But I'll tell you, all of my brothers and sisters with disabilities that have achieved or moved up that ladder, such as Lucas, it is their obligation to go back and grab someone else and carry them along with them. And Lucas did that. I think he was on the phone the other day, and we had Nick, that one of our kids. You know, we're going to go back and grab him. We're going back to grab everybody. And then it's up to them. If they want to be a mule and go cower down in the basement, sooner or later people give up on you. Sooner or later they do. And then you become a burden. And being a burden should be something everyone should fear. And I feared it, and Anthony feared it. But some people don't fear it. You don't want to be a burden. And I tell you what, I watch severe disabilities show incredible strength just by putting the foot forward. Is it hard? Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
But 1 foot forward makes you maybe the biggest badass of them all. And that's why Andre became one of the biggest badasses of all, because he's a role model, man. That guy, his head was down. He would have stayed out there for 6 months. I mean, he would have
done it by himself.
He's a pain in the ass. But I'm telling you what, that pain in the ass is probably the best part of our whole race, was to have that pain in the ass, go out there on those trails and people bow down seeing a dude walking sideways, carrying a bike over his shoulder and crawling with his other hand and using my prosthetic as a crutch, a little crap. I was pissed. My prosthetic never worked the same, but I'll tell you one thing. You know why he was carrying my prosthetic? Because he didn't want to be a burden. He wanted to get my prosthetic up to me because he saw I carried his bike.
Well,
That's badass shit.
I've kind of got the jealousy. You know, you see like a tight-knit unit together or team, like you just can't break into that. You just see that bond they have. Like I can see that with you guys right now, and just hearing the stories. Like, so are you guys doing this again next year? Can Dan and I, can we jump in on this?
What do you mean?
Are we going to?
I expect you.
Yeah, exactly.
I tell you what, I expect you in there. And I expect you're going to feel like Anthony and I felt. And I hope we feel that feeling, because that feeling is, man, that's pure emotion. And it's hard to get that in your life.
Dude, you're exactly right, man. It's hard to find the type of event that breaks you down to the little animal. And I'm telling you right now, we're just going to announce it. Like Mission 43 will have a team in next year's Smoke and Fire. That is in addition to the CAF Mission 43 team. However, we're going to break it down. If it's going to be 2 commingled teams, badass. If it's going to be 1 of each, badass. But I'm telling you, we are doing this right now. So this is my commitment to everybody, Mission 43. If you're interested in this, if you're listening to this and you're like, that amount of suffering sounds just right for me in my future, that you are going to have an opportunity next year. Yeah.
Well, with that, just, you know, and I'm not going to commit Mission 43, but dude, Willie and I talked about it. Like, how do you get more people involved? How do you get people to see this that don't necessarily want to go through the entire thing, but they want to see this and want to see what happens? Like, it would be very cool if we could get a group of Mission 43 folks to be along some of those portions of the trail to help the Andres get through.
That's a great idea.
And that way it's not, I mean, I don't want to say, because the team benefited from that in a big way, but other people have got to experience that, because it's
commitment.
Dude,
Sure
it's
will.
commitment. And just to watch it, it's pure inspiration.
Yeah.
And like, just to say I carried his hand bike for 100 yards and that was what I did
At 2 a.m.
at 2 a.m., like, that's commitment. That's you serving. That's you seeing something that's just straight up badass.
And the fact is, when Titus Lake was there, there's 10 Titus Lakes on the other side.
Yeah.
And every single log, everywhere there's a campground that someone can walk out 5 miles to, that log would be, you know, it's, when you're out there, you're allowed to help. You just got to be willing to help everyone. You know, you're allowed. I mean, I ran out of food and stuff like that. And, it's got to be available to everyone. Well, so I stood in front of a car and basically had a gun pointed at the window, stuck my head in the window, and I cleaned out the refrigerator. But I ran out of food because, why I ran out of food? Because I was out of my mind. I had people tell me over and over, there's no food or water in the next 100 miles. And I'm like, I'm fine. Got a Coke?
Got a Coke and a water, please?
And then all of a sudden it came to me, like when I finally got clear-headed again, I go, shoot, I'm in big trouble out here. And this lady comes by with her husband and they say, do you need anything? And one lady said this, and Mark goes, no, we don't need nothing. And they drive away. And then I go, hey, Mark.
I got the next one.
Next one comes by. You just shut your damn pie hole. Shut your pie hole, Mr. Nice. I don't need anything. I'm going to show you how to handle it. The next car comes by. Do you need anything? Hell yeah, I need some calories. You got it? She goes, as a matter of fact, I do. And that was my little ferry out there. But the ferry gave me ham and bologna and gave us a loaf of Big Head bread and we.
But dude, the funniest part of that entire story, that part is Willie stuffs it all in the back of his shirt, right? Like his shirt's all sweaty, it's gross. The bread's sitting on the back of
everything's gross.
When we finally sat down to eat that, like Willie just starts breaking it out and throws a piece of cheese on Mark's knee, and it's like oily and bubbly, and we're like,
nice.
And we all chow down. Yeah. We just crush it.
It looked like your dumpster Dan going down in the bottom of the dumpster going, I'm hungry, brother. Yeah. And it's kind of funny what you'll do when you're in pain, real pain. It's like pain makes you think differently and lack of sleep, is a type of torture, and dehydration. It's amazing how quickly you'll jump out in the middle of the street and commandeer a vehicle when you're in need. And it's kind of like the Cro-Magnon Willie popped out, and I just thought he was funny as hell, but no one else was laughing at him.
Well, we'll definitely get people together. I guarantee we got people in the audience who will support that. So, let us know at podcast@mission43.org. We'll be out there for sure. I'm looking forward to it.
Sweet.
Man, I got to ask you guys, Well, I found a quote that made me think of you guys. I'm going to ask you what you think of it. So, the athlete who says that something cannot be done should never interrupt the athlete who is doing it. I heard that actually just yesterday, and I was like, So the athlete or person that says that something can't be done should not get in the way, basically, of the actual dudes and women that are doing it. And that's exactly like smoking fire would never be on my radar. I would see it and say, I'm not a cyclist. It's not something that I want to invest in money-wise, time-wise. I don't know how I'd even do that with my young kids, even though you guys both have young kids and you just did it. But the fact that you just did it, and Lucas did it, and Andre did most of it, and Muhammad did a hell of a lot of it, I have no ground to stand on to not do it, to not get in my own way. I don't know. What's your guys' take?
I don't think you're in your way. You're not someone I actually worry about, but that person who says that you can't be done, I do worry about. In my world, it's healthcare professionals, physical therapists, occupational therapists, all the array of therapy, the physicians, the surgeons, every kind of emergency room. It's like, well, your life is going to change, and you probably won't be able to do that. And I'm telling you, that's impactful. Your pastor saying, well, we'll have to think this way. And when a lot of people don't understand, like when I was 18 years old, that I heard that over and over and over, what you couldn't do and how you had to change. Which, when you're a pig-headed Irish guy, the last thing you want to do is be told you can't do something and you have to change. You're like, well, for Christ's sakes, even if I'm my own worst enemy, I'm going to be good at it. And so that's what I look at, is like, who says that? Mm-hmm. And I don't think you say that. You're not the guy saying that. I think you believe you can. But boy, that little tiny guy that says you can't, that's a dangerous spiraling slope. Going back to what Brian was saying, is you can easily put someone on the pity train just by your behavior in the emergency room. Yeah. By your behavior in the recovery room. By your behavior in the pulpit. You can put someone in that realm. And it's like, and when you hear someone say it, someone should jump off that deathbed with their last grip and push them over a cliff. because that's probably the worst thing that you could ever do to someone is say, you can't. And it's like, believe. It's rare that anyone gets anything, disabled community doesn't get a lot of people believing in them. They do now, but they used to not. And my whole thing is if I can get more believers, we can change the world. And it's no different from the vets or the pity train. The pity train sometimes is pushed on people and they accept it.
Yeah.
My thing is, let's not start the thought. Let's just cancel that thought out. Say, it sucks what happened to you. What are you going to do about it?
Mm-hmm.
That's the other person in that quote, right? Like, we're talking about the guy who's in the way or says, I can't do it.
Right.
But you're not addressing the guy that's getting it done, right? That athlete that you're not going to get in the way of. Dude, it's on that athlete to circle back and find that person and say, you can do it. And I'm going to put you on a path, or I'm going to help you get through that. And like, in all honesty, that's where Willie came into it for me. Like, leading up to this race, when he finally committed to doing it, dude, he was my source of inspiration. He was my source of knowledge on how you endurance race. Yeah, he was that guy that was racing. He's done it. He's been there and done that. But he was willing to turn around and go back to that person that said, I can't do it. Because there were moments throughout this entire thing that I was like, dude, what have I gotten myself into? Like, in all honesty, like, I'm a football player. Like, I run for 10 yards and I stop. You know what I mean? Or I get tackled. Dude, I've never done anything long distance. I've never done a marathon, right?
You've never done a marathon or any kind of endurance before this?
Dude, sprint triathlon was the farthest I've ever done anything, right?
What the hell?
So, like, there was a lot of doubt coming into that. But Willie, that athlete who's been there, done that, was able to circle back and say, this is what you need to work on. This is what we need to do. We're going to go on training rides. We're going to go do this and whatever. You need to focus on keeping your heart rate low. Like, he gave me the tools, right? But it was me getting out of my own way on that side of that equation, of that quote, and doing it. You have to have the commitment to do it, but that athlete that got ahead needs to circle back and help out. And that's where this organization comes into play. That's where the Willies and the Lucases and the Andres, who are badass athletes, now have an opportunity to turn around and give back. And that's exactly what these two organizations do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you guys, Mark, that first day, he was in the gutter. He never ridden his bike more than 74 miles. And he's, up 150? But by the end of that first day, he was strong. And he did what it takes to get back in the game. And it's patience, and ego has to drop. You got to be a little baby again and get your diaper changed, because you're going to look really silly for quite a few hours while that diaper's being changed, and you're a grown man. But he got his diaper changed, and he led, which I was really proud of him on that day.
Dude, and everybody went through it on this race. Like, I specifically remember Deadwood Reservoir, and Yee remembers it too, man. Like, Willie had bonked. He was done. We had just done a river crossing, or a stream crossing, sorry, and we were pushing the bikes up the other side. He was sweating. He was pale. He hadn't eaten much. And there was a moment where the tables turned, because up until this point, he was the motivator. He was the one that said, you need to stop and rest. And Mark and I would stop and rest. But it was at that moment, it was, Willie, sit your ass down, don't move. And Mark and I went back and forth to the stream, filling up water bottles, filtering water. And we sat there, and we changed his diaper, right? We fed him. We got him water, and we got him in a good spot.
I kept my diaper on for a good 5 or 6 hours after that. I'm like, oh, boy. Yeah. It was good. It's always good to have a babysitter, and a nipple to attach yourself to.
Big trees.
Thanks for that
too,
nipple,
man.
buddy. Yeah.
But dude, everybody goes through that in their transition.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it is. In your life transition, that's what you are. You're in the gutter. Man, the gutter ain't the worst place to be. Getting up is power. You know it. We all know it. Getting up is power, but you gotta fall sometimes.
Dude, thank you guys for displaying the power that you did, not just for the community, the communities of both Mission 43 and Challenge Athletes Foundation, but thank you from me personally, because I've seen this and kept up on you guys through the whole thing. And I honestly have not been so excited about something, and I wasn't even a part of it. I tracked you guys on the tracker, like the Smoke and Fire tracker, with probably more intensity than I've watched the Super Bowl since I was a kid. Like, I don't know why, I just felt so interested, and I'm not the only one. Like, it was a constant conversation in the office, at home, with my kids, where are they? and then going to the north end on Sunday night and seeing you guys finish was.
But you were a part of it, and that's the other thing, right? Like everybody thinks of the team as being us. The team was bigger than just
Way
us,
bigger.
right? Dan, dude, it was you, it was Jen, it was Nick, right? Like Nick was a motivation, and it's all these people that as you're going through that journey that are giving you that little bit of a nudge that says you can do that. I'm excited. I'm inspired. It's that part that you're like, you know what? I'm gonna freaking finish this race.
Yeah, I loved whatever you guys are seeing that one time. So we go 150 miles and we think we're all studs. And, and then we stop for a few hours because we had some mechanicals. But I just want to know what those dots look like when we were going back down the trail in the wrong direction, and then what it looked like when those two other dots. Oh, the other two dots are coming up the trail, and those two dots don't look too good. And then all of a sudden, for 15 hours, we didn't cover 30 miles.
I remember that period. And
But everyone's like, "What's wrong with those guys?" And then no. And then when you tell someone that, well, there's a dude in a wheelchair going down some single track along a creek that was just a nightmare, and then we took him up to the top of Galena, and we went up Titus. What? You did what?
You did what?
And then we
There
were
were
like,
the racers at the end of the race. They were like, "You did what?"
who does shit for 15 hours and moves nowhere in the middle of a race?
Dude,
well, this team did.
My neighbor ran into you guys. He wasn't a part of the race.
Oh,
he
yeah.
just does his training
Seth.
ride. Yes, Seth. Yeah, and he rides those areas. And by the way, Seth, if you're listening to this, you got to do it next year. But he's like, he pulls up and like knocks on my door, and I'm like tracking you guys, and he's like, he was legit excited. He was like, dude, I ran into the guys, the Smoke and Fire team, the Mission 43 CAF team. And I'm like, you did? Like, how they doing? He's like, I don't know how they're doing it. Like, he was talking about Andre, like, going on that's so steep that he was literally looked like he was going to flip his hand cycle backwards.
Yeah.
That's what my
And
neighbor
that
was telling
the day
me.
after over the summit.
Oh, Lord.
We're pretty sure we're over the summit now. And Andre and Lucas are holding their lead, which we were pretty proud of that.
Yeah.
We were proud. They're holding their lead, man. And then, oh, crap, we caught them.
Dang it!
We're going to have to start working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Awesome
thanks so
experience.
much. We totally appreciate you guys coming out, and it's been a great conversation.
Cool.
And hopefully we'll be with you next year.
No one better than just you guys, the
Next
entire
year.
team.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hell yeah.
Well, thank you for the
Congratulations.
opportunity to actually learn and be inspired by you guys. Thank
You got to sometimes have balls and sometimes you need to cut them off.
Well, if I was really a part of it, then I don't really need to do it next year, right? If I was a part of it this year. It's team effort. Call it a victory for me.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
This is the Mission 43 podcast.
Mission 43 empowers veterans and military spouses to lead, learn, and inspire throughout our great state.
We are proud of our service in the special operations community, but as Idahoans, we found a new way to be a part of something special.